Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you are watching Off the Track, and it is time to drop the hammer.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to another Wednesday of Off the Track. This is episode number 12, and I'm your host, Tanner Holmes. To my left, I have my best friend and co-host, Bennett Gooch. Bennett, what have you been up to recently?
Well, it's a funny story. A lot of people know because I've made some videos about it. I went into Best Buy to buy a new wheel and pedals for my iRacing setup. Because if you don't know, I have a 2004 Momo rig.
They probably saw it in the last, if you guys watched the last podcast, when we did the Zoom call, you could see your steering wheel and pedals and setup.
Yep. So as you saw, the shifter comes out, and the biggest joke in the world, the dang throttle sticks and the brakes don't work. So I go into Best Buy, and I'm going to get a new setup. I go in there so often, and they've got the wheel and pedals I want. Well, the one time I go in there to buy them, they don't have them. Well, you know, we ended up walking out with a drone. So now we're going to be, the content on the channel, the clips are about to get 10 times better. I'm so stoked. Me and Tanner were messing with it a little bit earlier. I think we're going to be able to make some sweet content with this drone.
Yeah, drones are super cool. And the main reason I just never really, invested, that's actually...
And we've always talked about getting one.
Yeah, we've always talked about getting one, and it's such an awesome toy, but I just never invested money to want to get one because I always felt I wasn't going to use it enough. Or, like, for example, I was going to have to be the one that was flying it, and just sometimes at the races, we don't have a lot of time to necessarily do that. Or, like myself, because I'm already trying to create the video, and, the flights can be 15, 20, 25 minutes, and you try to get some awesome shots. But, yeah, like you said, we were playing with it, and when Bennett got here, earlier today, we flew it out of my... So, he took it off, or he had it take off in my room, and we flew it out the window, and the dog was freaking out about this drone, guys. But anyway, so, he flew it out the window and took it for a little test flight, and I'm sure over the next couple days, we're going to use it a ton.
Oh, yeah. I think the content we make with it's going to be cool. I didn't think, but when I always wanted one. I just was like, that's really expensive. Is it that good? The content or the quality is pretty good. So I'm excited to shoot this. It goes up to 5 miles away. 500 meters in the air, so this will be super cool.
Yeah, so stay tuned for some of the drone footage coming, and probably this weekend, where we're going to be racing, which we'll talk about that a little bit later in the episode. Anyway, today we interviewed JJ Hickle over the phone. JJ, one of the cool things, this is the first guy, I guess, that we've had that's from, my local area, I should say, the Pacific Northwest. JJ from Washington, he ran a lot at the Skagit Speedway, Elma. He's won a ton of races up there. He also won a lot in the Frontier region, where we ran a little bit in 2020, and now he's winning races in California and across the Midwest and on the ASCS National Tour. So JJ, he's awesome to interview. You can tell, like, one of the cool things, obviously I've talked to him in person, we're buddies. He's just kind of like an upbeat guy. He has a lot of energy, exciting, and he's just cool to watch behind the wheel of a race car. So we interview him today for 25-30 minutes. We talk about a bunch of different topics, from his red hot start to 2021 winning races, kind of how he got started. He talks a little bit about a bus that they used to take to the races and quarter midgets, and then he just talks about a lot of the opportunities he got, kind of through the timeline of his career, and how he got out of the Pacific Northwest and is now racing on the road. So we're going to jump right into that interview with JJ Hickle. So joining us here today on episode number 12 of Off the Track, he drives winged 360 sprint cars all over the country. Some of his biggest accomplishments include the Skagit Summer Nationals, an ASCS Speed Week title, and he just recently swept the Devil's Bowl Spring Nationals with the ASCS National Tour. JJ Hickle, welcome to the show.
Yeah, welcome.
Hey guys, happy to be on. Excited to talk to you.
So to get started, you've been off to a red-hot start for 2021. You just recently won the Devil's Bowl Spring Nationals with the ASCS National Tour. You also have a win in California. Can you just tell us how your start to 2021 has been from your perspective?
Well, honestly, it's been a little bit of up and down. We went to Bakersfield for the opening weekend there in California, and we actually ended up getting caught up in a mess there in the dash and killed the car. So we kind of licked our wounds and regrouped and put together a new car for Hanford, and then we went there and we were really successful, and we won a big race there and ran top 5 the second night, and then that was the last time we raced before we left for Texas. And then obviously we've been fast over here, and it's just it's been one of those deals where everything seems to be clicking. Me and my crew chief Ivan are just kind of on the same page, and then we got Pat just giving us a good car every single night, and it just seems to be working out.
So one of the main things I wanted to ask you as a Pacific Northwest guy, we're from a similar region, running Skagit, Elma. Those are kind of like our normal racetracks. What's it like now that you've had the opportunity to go down to California and race on kind of a different style of track on a weekly basis, as well as just such stacked competition? How has it been these last couple of years running down there in that state?
Well, it's been really humbling, honestly. I mean, I went down there and I was like, I run pretty good at Skagit and Elm and whatnot, and I was driving the car way too straight at most of these California tracks, little bull rings and whatnot. They were a lot rougher and stickier than anything I've been used to, and so it's really evolved my game as a race car driver. I think that it's helped me get a lot better by just getting my butt kicked by those guys all the time. I mean, the top 10 or 15 at just about every race in California are, just stacked. The competition level is so high on a weekly basis that you have no choice to get better if you don't want to get lapped every week. And so I think it really, really helped me and made me a lot more ready for all the various surfaces we're going to face this season.
So running all those tracks down in California, do you have a specific one you maybe have picked to more of a liking to?
Oh, definitely Hanford. I would say the King Speedway or the Colorado Speedway there. That place is, as soon as we got there, I looked at my car and I was like, man, I didn't know California had places like this. It's got big sweeping corners, just a lot more wing speed, a lot, just bigger and slicker than almost anywhere that I've gotten to race in California. So, and I, we had success there right off the bat. And it just, as soon as we got there, I knew I was going to like the place and how it races out. I really enjoy going there.
So I think we're going to be running Hanford this weekend, right, Tanner?
Yes, we are.
Do you have any tips maybe you could tell for Tanner for this upcoming weekend?
Man, just keep watching the track. That place changes so much. Peter's done such a good job, and he's a racer's promoter to the max. And it's a thinking man's racetrack. We've every time we've been there, it's from the beginning of the feature to the end of the feature. It's changed quite a bit. So just Tanner's really good at keeping up on that stuff. So I'd say just do your thing. You'll really like it there, I bet.
Cool.
That's awesome. We are super excited to get down there, and hopefully, a ton of the California guys will be there with the 410 sprint car. Another thing to ask you about, so we touched on California, but you did win those national races in Texas. What's it like? I know the California competition does get a lot of credit. Their weekly racing is just so stacked, but also now to go and win on a national level as a guy who did just run a lot of local stuff in Washington and Montana. What's it like to beat the best of the best 360 guys, at some of their tracks that they run a lot?
Oh, it's huge for our confidence as a team. Like we want to come out here and we're chasing points and we're in it for the whole deal. And to come out here to a track that we haven't, I raced there once in 2008, didn't get very many laps. My team's never been there. To be able to be that fast and that competitive right out of the box at a place we've not been just really gives us a lot of confidence. And, honestly, winning that race in California right before we left is like, you look through the pits, there was 55 cars there. Golubic, Selzy, Kading, anybody you can think of, and to win a race like that, it's hard to not have confidence kind of anywhere you're going to go when you're racing the 360 sprint cars all over. So, that the national guys are really good. They've done their time out here. They've raced on these surfaces a lot more than we have. So, it's a learning curve that we're trying to make up, but that was a really good start and we're just hoping to keep it going.
Cool. That's super neat. And I think one of the next things that we want to jump into for a segment here on this episode, we all kind of see where you're at now. You're chasing national tour points, you're winning races all along the West Coast and a little bit in the Midwest, and you're really starting to make your journey out there. And I think, for a lot of sprint car drivers, where you're at is a goal, to get out there and race on the road. But where did this journey start for you? And where did you really specifically get started in racing?
Oh man, I would just say, I was just a little kid, and me and my dad went and watched the sprint cars race at Skagit Speedway, and I told him that's what I want to do. And I the way they turn left and right all the way through the corner, I like how they were always turning right. You could see the guys working them, and just as a little kid, I thought that's what I wanted to do. And I always watched my dad go race his stock car, and so eventually, when I was 4 or 5 years old, just started racing quarter midgets, and it just kind of progressed. We raced quarter midgets out of an old school bus, and just kind of always did our own thing, kind of out of a smaller town. We were never really close to any racetracks or anything, but my dad always just made it work, stayed up all night, whatever it took to get to the races, and we raced all around quarter midgets. And then when I was old enough, we got a sprint car, and we just kind of struggled along at that until I was about 16 years old, and then there's a team out of Washington that Vern Ringen owned, and he picked me up and, saw that we had some potential. If we had a little bit of backing, we might be able to do something. And we kind of got a race all over the place there for a couple of years, and that really, got me some experience and got me to see the world, see the racing world, and see that that's really something I wanted to do. And then the economy all fell apart, and that ride kind of went away. And then it was just me and my dad kind of like refinanced the house, bought a race team, and then just grinded and cut our teeth after that, and just tried to do as good as we could and just pick up any opportunity that I could to go drive for people. I messaged a lot of people. I've heard a lot of no's or a lot of like, here's our price. And I just explained, I don't really come with much money. I just got a passion for racing, and I'm going to do everything I can to go up front. And, I've been fortunate enough to drive for probably about 10 teams now, and had a lot of fun and met a lot of great people. And, just right now I'm hooked up with Ivan and Jane Warden, and just really loving my life out here on the road and enjoying the fact that I'm not wiring a house somewhere in Washington or California right now.
That's awesome. And we really want to deep dive into kind of different parts of that story. The first one, so when we have guests comes on, call in studio, whatever, we always like to do research on you guys and try to figure some things out. Well, I'm good friends with Hunter Brady. Hunter's helped you out for years throughout the Northwest, and he told me to make sure you elaborate a little bit on that school bus. Was this like just a bus you guys had? What was it like going to the quarter midget races, in this bus?
So this was a bus that, one of my dad's good buddies, and when my dad was racing, this guy was on his crew, and still one of our best family friends. It was his old school bus, and he just kind of let us do whatever we wanted with it. And so we gutted the whole thing out and put a futon couch and a fold down bed, and then in the front of it, that was the whole front area, and then the back door, we just cut it all out so the whole back door would open, and you just have the thing open. Kind of similar to what McCarthy's got going on at the Chili Bowl, but way more redneck and just for quarter midgets. You know what I mean? You're talking my dad had a big mullet, I had a mullet, and we would roll out with these American flag quarter midgets. But so he had it all done up like that, and then we went to a nationals one time in Langley, British Columbia, and he let any kid at the nationals that wanted to sign the bus anywhere they wanted, and let all the kids paint the whole front of it. So it was pretty ridiculous looking by the time we got done with it.
That definitely had to have been a fan favorite rig to show up to the track for sure.
Oh, and one of the best parts was, we'd show up with this bus, couple of grungy guys with mullets, and a lot of times we'd show up next to all these $100,000 motorhomes and all these, really nice trailers and stuff, and we'd take a lot of trophies home. It was pretty satisfying.
That's super cool.
That's awesome. Yeah. So, transitioning from the quarter midget, I know you talked about getting started in sprint cars. What was kind of that first race in a sprint car like, and then who were some of the big names you were competing against in the Pacific Northwest at the time when you got behind the wheel of your first sprint car?
The first race was I would say it was a NST show at Grays Harbor Raceway. That's my home track there, and it was just we basically just went out, wanted to start at the back of everything and get laps and everything and that. But I mean, the guys at that point were Steve Kent, Roger Crockett, Jamie Burns, Ricky Favre was a big name. I think Shauna Wilson was still racing at that point, or she was just getting done. There was the Northwest. Another name that really comes to mind is Billy Nutter. Northwest was there was a lot of good race car drivers. I mean, there always has been around there, and it just I would say the first race was kind of like being strapped to a rocket ship or something. I'd say just to go from a quarter midget to a 360 sprint car was kind of a big learning curve. But one of the best things anybody ever told me, my first night out, was that none of these guys are necessarily better than you. They all just have more experience than you. And so, as I learned that I just need to gain experience to really fulfill my potential, I basically just kind of calmed down and wasn't so bothered by getting beat all the time right off the bat.
Absolutely. Did you ever do any other experimenting with other cars, maybe like a late model, dirt late model, or something like that before you got into the sprint car?
No, I was pretty young when I got into a sprint car deal, and I tried to drive a modified one time, an IMCA modified at Grays Harbor Raceway. I was 12 and a half years old, and we didn't tell anybody that I was going to try and drive it besides just our family friend that owned it and us, and we like bolted my seat inside of this guy's seat because my seat was so small. And then I just like got dressed in the hauler and just like went and got in the car. And nobody told me how to drive these things or anything. They're just like, they showed me how to shift it and get into racing gear, and that was it. And I went down the front straightaway, and the thing like started sashaying like those modifieds do, and I like let off the gas, and it just went dead right into the wall, like with the ass end of it basically, and like knocked the rear end out of it, and that was my modified career.
Wow, that's crazy.
That's a good story to tell.
Yeah, that was it. That was like, man. So then when I see those guys race, I'm like, I tell people, I'm like, those things are hard to drive, like harder than you think.
Oh, I would agree. Definitely a lot of the other classes, they have their unique driving styles, and as tough it is to drive a wing sprint car, man, some of those other classes are very, very difficult. Another segment I kind of wanted to go into before we talk about getting hooked up with the Wardens, because I think that was maybe your big break or your big opportunity that now you're still with them and your national racing. One of the places we tend to saw you a lot besides the Northwest was a little bit in the frontier region. Can you maybe talk about that maybe section of yours where you went up into Montana and raced a little bit with those guys, and kind of how that was maybe a confidence booster to go to a little bit of a different region and still get a bunch of opportunities to race and win a lot of races?
Absolutely. I would say going to Montana was one of the most fun times of my racing career. I was fortunate enough to go over there, and we raced our own car a couple of times, and then I got called by Richie and Nubby Peterson to go drive the 23N, which is around the Montana area is kind of a famous car. Those guys they're legends around Great Falls, and they've raced all around the Northwest and Montana and everything. So it was really an honor to race with those guys. And man, I mean, we'd have to talk all night to tell you all the good stories I have with those guys. But man, they are a fun team to race with. Me and Pat, we were driving back and forth. Shoot, it was 13 or 14 hours, and I'd work, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We'd get off of work, drive all night, go race Friday, Saturday, drive all night back home. And like with rainouts and stuff in Montana, we were doing that 4, 5, 6 weeks in a row a couple times. And we were happy as heck to do it because it was so much fun to go race over there. And it was really good for confidence just to be able to go race against, a whole group of 30 new people, and to be racing in the front of those races and to win some races over there was, it doesn't do anything but good for you. And then it really helped me, I think, get some more opportunities because I've drove for probably 5 different teams just over at those Montana races. It seemed like people, if they needed a driver, like one time I was really fortunate to get hooked up and drive the 39C, the Frenchie.
Oh, yeah.
That's kind of what everybody called him, Richard Samura. But Frenchie's what everybody knew him as. Travis Rylett was his main driver. A lot of good people have drove his race cars, though. And, he called me one time on a Wednesday night. He's like, hey, buddy, my driver can't make it. He's like, you come over here. Like, we have some fun. I'm like, okay. And like, next thing I know, he's like, me and Michael Harris, my crew chief for the weekend, we're driving to Montana to go race the 39C for a weekend, just because I guess I had a good reputation of doing good in Montana. So it was a really, really good time in my, I love going to Montana still. I have so many friends there and so many fans, and like, I think that it's a great place to go race. And, they put on a 3-day show at the end of last year. You were there, you won a race there, and it was really competitive racing, and the track was wicked good, and I really look forward to their future over there.
Nice. So a quick question. You did mention you have a ton of stories. Obviously, we probably don't have enough time to hear all those, but what's maybe one that sticks out in your mind that you could maybe share with us?
Oh, goodness. Well, I mean, the first time that, before I even could ever drive their car, he calls me, and I'm underneath the house in a crawl space working, and he calls me, JJ. He's like, we got kicked out the last time we went there. I punched a guy in the face in the pit area, but he says, if they will reinstate me and let me go back in, will you come drive my car for the first time? And I'm like, yeah, sure. Just let me know. And then whenever we showed up to the racetrack, there was like people standing there waiting to collect, $500 for you, I'm sorry. Like $500 for you, I'm sorry. Paying off his fines just so we could go into the track and race. And, those guys, they're just like, everything in Montana, when you go there, it feels like it's like 20 or 30 years ago. And they're just timeless legends of the sport, like Richie and his dad, Nubby, are just awesome people. And they do it old school, I'd say.
I can agree. Yeah, a lot of people up there just love sprint car racing, and they don't have a lot of races each year. But when they do, the turnouts are good. Usually the car counts are all right, and especially when some of the Northwest guys or maybe people east, kind of meet in the middle there, it can definitely provide some great racing.
Definitely. There's a lot of good cars that come from Canada, too, that unfortunately are kind of stuck right now. But it seems like they get kind of a menagerie of, like, a couple of cars from the Midwest. And then, like you said, when you get the cars from the Northwest over there, the competition level definitely goes up. And then you get, there's a handful of really solid cars from Canada as well. So it's a good spot. They just released a pretty good schedule.
Absolutely. I know we're hoping to get back there for 2021 for our schedule. Moving in next, I want to talk about the Wardens because that's who you're currently racing with, the 63 car. They've been around for a long time racing along the West Coast at different tracks. How did you land a ride in the Warden 63, and how do you kind of feel like that's elevated you to the spot where you're now at?
I would just say it was really a fortunate timing thing. I wanted to get into California so bad. Me and Pat, my main crew guy, my good buddy, we'd be riding up and down the road to Montana. I'm like, man, I want to get into California. And we were just at a Saturday race at Skagit, and my buddy Justin Cox happened to be racing the Doug Roots car there, and he ran at Chico the night before. I was over there just chatting with him, and just like same story I'm always giving him, like, man, how do I get into California? Is there any rides out there? He's like, oh my gosh, dude. Like this would be the perfect setup. Them and their driver just split up last night at Chico. Like it just wasn't going to work out, and call these people, and he's like, you love them. And so that's Jane and Ivan Warden. He tells me message him on Facebook. So I messaged Jane. First thing she says to me, like she replies, like several days later, I'm going to race Richie and Nubby's car, and she replies to me like, who are you and how did you get our information? At that point, I was pretty sure I wasn't going to drive their car. I was like, okay, I didn't go so hot, and got a phone number and was able to talk to her husband Ivan, and he's like, yeah, sounds like a fun time. We'll try racing for a weekend together, and so then they offered me the weekend of the Brownfield at I was at Dirt Cup, and they're like, how about next weekend? The weekend of the Brownfield. I'm like, oh man. And I was like, I said no at first because the Brownfield, that's one I really want to win for a lot of reasons. It's at my home track, and Fred kind of let me start racing whenever I was younger than I should have been. But it was like, when I told Justin and his crew chief Rodney that I said no to him, like in the pit area there at Dirt Cup, they both told me like, stupid decision, bad choice. Go back to my phone and tell them yes. Pretty adamant that they were right, and I trust my friends, And I listened. I went down there, told them I'll definitely be there next weekend. Skipped the Brownfield, went down there, and we ran second at Chico, second at Marysville, and then like top 10 at Petaluma for a SCCT show, and then just kind of kept getting to race, here and there. They had this race, and then at the end of all of that, they asked me if I wanted to move in with them and live with them for the season and go race, full time around California and do some traveling. And before she even got done saying the sentence, I said, absolutely. Yep. That was supposed to be for the 2020 season. And then the COVID happened and made things kind of weird. We still got to race 50 races, which to me is a ton, but to Californians is like, that's a light year. So they didn't really want to go out on a kind of weird year. So they wanted to get out and travel a little bit. And so here we are, we're in the zone, getting ready to head down to Louisiana and just chasing the national tour this year. It's like super awesome opportunity. I couldn't be more grateful for Jane and Ivan for kind of sticking their necks out and making it happen. We're driving around the country here. They have a motorhome and a trailer from 1960 with like a streetcar in it, and then I have my race trailer with a truck that they just got in it or pulling it. So we're not too big and fancy, but we're rolling around and having a good time.
That's all that matters.
Yeah, that's great. So that's awesome to hear that story because like you said, I mean, that's the opportunity in the car that you're in now, and now you're out on the road racing. A segment that we always like to do with all of our guests is talk about some of your big accomplishments. Sprint car racing, it can be a marathon. It has its ups and downs. Some nights don't go so well, but some nights, it feels like you're the highest guy in the sport. And so we have a list of accomplishments and some of the big races that you've won, and I kind of would like you maybe just touch on them a little bit, maybe tell the story of that night. The first one was actually, not only do you have many wins in the United States, but you also have a win in Canada at the Canadian Gold Cup driving for Doug Roots. Can you tell us maybe a little bit about that trip and what it was like to win that event in Canada?
Yeah, that was an awesome trip. I went up to Doug's place, like, say we're racing on a Friday, I'm up there on a Wednesday, and me and him go over to Jim Richmond, his engine builders. There's a bare motor sitting there, and then Jim's helper shows up, and him and Jim just like slam this motor together in a few hours right in front of us, and throw it on the dyno. We throw it in Doug's van, drive it up, put it in the car, still warm, and then like boom, and I hop in Doug's truck, and I'm like, all right, 'cause I'm already in Canada, I'm like, all right, so like a few hours to the track or what? He's like, yeah, we're about 14 hours away. I'm like, oh, okay. So I didn't realize how far up it was, and so then we went up there, and it was like the first night rained out, and the second night we did hot laps, and there was like they did the sheep's foot deal, and then there was still standing water inside of the sheep's foot holes. And so, like, I got done hot lapping the start, and I just was like, and I didn't know how bad the track felt. I just thought that brand new car, never been in it. And I was like stressed out, man. I was like, this is not like, what am I doing here? This is a disaster. Like, I don't have a feel for this car at all. And it's time to compete now. It's Saturday night at Gold Cup. And so we go into qualify. The track's all tacky. I qualified second quick. The car felt amazing. I'm like, total role reversal in my head. I'm like, okay, I feel good, And we ended up doing a pill draw deal, and it's me and the 39C Travis Ford on the front row of the feature. And what was cool about that is the week before, I just drove the 39C in Billings and Great Falls, and we swept the weekend. We won both nights, so it was like I was starting next to the car that I was just driving, so I kind of had a good idea what he had, And I was like, it was pretty cool. And so me and Rylet, we ended up trading. We traded the lead probably like 5 or 6 times. The track was pretty hooked up, and it was like just a real, kind of a momentum track in 1 and 2, and then old school fast and hooked up in 3 and 4. And we raced it out really hard. And then with like 2 or 3 laps to go, I actually got slid for the lead. And right when that happened, Rylet ended up crashing. I got slid by a Canadian for the lead, Casey Adams, and Rylet ended up crashing. Gave me the lead back, and we were able to hang on and win the thing on a green-white checker. I'll never forget seeing the checker flag, like just being very, very relieved and happy, and like shutting the engine off as fast as I could, And Doug Gooch told me he loved me that night, which is super rare. He is not a very nice guy. Not like he's not a nice guy. He just is a very brash speaker.
That's an incredible story, and it's awesome. I know they haven't had much racing up there, so that's cool to hear that. Another big win that you had, and I think this is probably, you've done some cool stuff, and we're going to get into the next one, but I think one of the races that really put you on the map, or a big win in the Northwest, was when you bagged $10,000 at the Summer Nationals at Skagit, and just how the whole race played out. Jason Sowald, a legend of the Northwest, won so many big races, is leading, and then on a late race restart, you drive from third to first and literally pass them on the last corner going down the back straightaway. Can you touch on that night and just what it was like for, a team that you guys own, just a family team, trying to do everything you can to go racing and have fun and be competitive, and to go and win a race like that and win that much money?
Absolutely. I would say that'd definitely be the highlight of my career for sure. It's like I don't have any kids or anything. I tell anybody I talk to, that's the greatest moment of my life. It was just one of those things, it looked like the race shook out early. We were actually started in the front. We were running up front early, and then just kind of, the race was shaking out. It looked like we were going to run fourth, and then somebody in the top 3 spun with 3 to go, and then you had Sowald on the lead and Bergman running second. If you look at the last, I don't know, 6 or 7 360 Nationals and Dirt Cups, those 2 guys are the best there is at Skagit. And some of the best, they've won all there is to win. They're both, the 2 elites at the track. I felt like that night, and to have a restart, I thought for sure one of them would go to the top. And, I've watched the video a few times. You can see, as soon as they go to the bottom, you can see me turn back right to get to the top. And then after that, it's just, you see an opportunity like that, you're going to go as far as you can go, and you're going to be hopefully hyper alert and hit your marks. And it just worked out, I couldn't, when we saw that, when I went into turn 1, behind Jason on the white flag lap, I got to side by side with Seth. I guess we'll go back a lap on the green flag. I got to side by side with Seth down the backstretch. He raced me really clean, gave me a line. I got off of 4 better. I cleared them off of 4, and then I had a pretty good run. But shoot, when we got across the start finish line, Jason was like 10 or more car lengths ahead of me, and I went into 1 and 2 with everything I had, just hoping I could maybe get a run to like show him a nose in 3 and 4. And by the time we came out of 2, we cleared him, and I just like I couldn't believe it. We were coming down the back street. It's like, do I take his line or do I go with what got me here? And know that, like, I know he's not going to drive into the corner and crash me. He's about as respectable a driver as you're ever going to race against. And so just went in on the top. He got up next to me, and we were able to just, like, see the checkers first off of 4. And, man, just to do that in my own car in front of, like, my dad and all the people that I know and love at the track. And also, I crushed 3 vertebrae at that race, at that track, like 4 years prior to that. So everything about it was just so like vindicating, and just one of those moments where just everything came together, and it's like, this is why we race.
That's cool.
That's a great story, and I just, like I said, I have that video in my head because I remember just watching it and just how it played out, like you said, and last lap pass just so exciting for the fans. The last accomplishment, and I think like the stretch of like 8 or 9 days that you had last year during 2020 for ASCS Speed Week, we absolutely have to touch on. And actually a little bit before that, can you talk about, you made the Knoxville Nationals 360 a main event. You did that, and then in the next span of weeks, winning at Lakeside, the ASCS Speed Week opener, and then going on to win the Speed Week title, and just being so consistent throughout that week, and also with a team that, you'd ran with a little bit, but, still figuring things out in the Midwest on tracks that you're completely unfamiliar with.
Really a proud moment for our team to make the show. They actually went to Knoxville once a few years back. They definitely did not make the A main, so they were all really happy. Everybody was really happy, so it was cool to make the show that night. And then that was, it was confidence boosting for our team, and that led right into, I think we had Sunday off, and then we raced the Lakeside Speedway, and that's another big, big, fast track, a lot of wing speed. And me and Ian Madsen had a really good race for the lead, and we ended up passing him to win. I think we passed him with 2 or 3 laps to go. It's a really cool highlight video. And so then, we went from making the show to winning at Lakeside. And I think there was almost 40 cars at every Speed Week race, and just, it didn't really matter. Like, you always need to have fortune with your draws and to not get taken out and whatnot. But the way that they were doing it on Speed Week was all on qualifying as the All-Stars format, so everything was kind of earned, and it just felt like we got into a good groove qualifying, and just one of those weeks where it all kind of shakes out. Everything kind of slows down for you, and it just everything in the car seems to be happening the way you want it to.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, we ran, myself and our family, we ran ASCS Speed Week, so we kind of were right there to get a feel of what that was like, and that can be a tough week depending on, obviously if you're doing well, you kind of can keep riding your momentum. If you're not, when you're racing against guys like that, I mean, they will kind of kick the crap out of you every single night, and it's really tough, especially when you're going to new tracks. So I think that was a huge success for, the 63 team and yourself to, really dominate that. To kind of wrap up this podcast, we wanted to just talk with, what's next for you? Obviously, this year you're going to be chasing ASCS National points. How many races is that? And then is there any other shows that aren't necessarily national races that you kind of plan on running?
Yeah, we just have been looking at our schedule wherever it makes sense. What I really like to do is on our off weeks, I try to go somewhere where we're going to have a national points race later in the year to set us up for success that way. The number one goal right now is to try and do everything we can to run up front in this points title here with ASCS. Besides that, probably Trophy Cup at the end of the year, and that'll, as far as I know, as far as everything goes, the Wardens, this is their maiden voyage, their final, their bon voyage, I guess, their final win out here. So at the end of Trophy Cup and whatnot, I will be kind of like a free agent, hoping to do something where I can keep traveling and hopefully expanding my career and being a race car driver.
That's great. Well, we will definitely all be watching, and we want to wish you luck. Thank you so much, JJ, for taking the time to talk with us here today. Do you have like a Facebook page or something where maybe you post racing updates where the viewers can kind of follow along with your season?
Yeah, definitely. I got just JJ Hickle Racing on Facebook, and I update it every single week and have all my results. And thank you guys very much, and good luck in Hanford. I think you'll really enjoy that place.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. We will talk soon. So what a phenomenal interview with JJ Hickle. Like I said, a fellow guy from the Northwest. So much to kind of unpack there. You know, he talked a lot about, you know, how he got started, the quarter midget. I knew you would love the bus comment, and I knew I had to bring it up when I was talking to my good friend Hunter, and he talked about, you know, them racing in a bus and their American flag quarter midgets, and so many cool things there, as well as just like getting some insight on how he, you know, first got started in sprint car racing. He talked about it being just like being attached to a rocket ship and standing on the gas.
Yeah, that was super unique too. And I know, like, from my family, I don't know if you knew this actually, when I started racing outlaw karts, we started in a horse trailer. Yeah. My mom's horse trailer. So
I started in a snowmobile trailer. So.
Yeah. So she used to show AQHA horses on the West Coast, and she won a championship in 2010, I think a circuit championship or something. So at the time, that's all we had was a horse trailer. And my dad, I was like 5. He's like, all right, we'll get you in racing. And then we didn't go in the back of a truck. We went out of a horse trailer. So I think we were in that for a year or two. And then that's when we finally got our race trailer.
That's great. And then also JJ talked about racing in the Frontier region, you know, landing the ride that he's now in today, and, you know, winning those races back in the Midwest, Devil's Bowl recently, last year at Lakeside. And the 63 car has been really, really good. And they're definitely going to be a force to reckon with, you know, as they move into the ASCS National Tour points. I believe they're leading them right now, and they got some more races coming up. So a pretty busy schedule for them. As far as our racing goes, you know, we ran Tulare recently. We had a weekend off because of just some stuff that we were doing here locally in Southern Oregon. And now we're back at it this weekend at the Ocean Speedway in Watsonville, and Hanford Saturday with the 410. So a 360, we're going to run a 360 on Friday and then drop the 410 in for Saturday. And I think one of the significant things to bring up, just a fun fact, one of the cool things about us racing in Watsonville for the first time is that's actually where my mom is from. She's from Monterey, California. So that's really close to there. So it'll be kind of fun. She's going to see some family, as well as we're going to get to see a new racetrack.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of our favorite things to adventure a new place. We're 7 miles from the ocean, so the drone shots are going to be cool. And I've been skydiving down there, but it's going to be kind of cool going to a racetrack that's kind of on the coast too.
Yeah, that's also going to kind of play a factor with the track conditions, I think. I know Ocean, some tracks it's more significant than
like
others.
Ventura.
You know, where maybe, you know, the tide changes and the track conditions change. So it'll be kind of interesting to see how that plays in. Like I said, though, we're going to be running the 360 on Friday. I think I'm expecting at least 30 to 40 cars. I don't think anything else is racing in California on Friday night, which means a lot of good competition will be there. There's probably going to be at least 20 guys that can win. It's really crazy. And that's one thing JJ talked about. Racing in California, you know, it's so stacked. It's comparable to the Midwest. They just don't have as wide of a selection of tracks to run on, which makes it, you know, where everyone's kind of in the same spot at the same night.
One of the cool things too is if you watched last weekend at Ocean, the I think it was a street stock race was actually pretty good. Like, they were side by side for so many laps, and you kind of don't necessarily see that too often in the street stocks. It's kind of single file, but the track was pretty good there. The sprint cars, it was pretty rubber down, but, you know, it provided for some good racing, a couple lead changes too.
Yeah, for anybody that has been watching Flow Racing, obviously such a wide selection of stuff to, you know, I know on Saturday night when I was sitting at home, I tuned into, or I guess Friday, I tuned into Ocean, Saturday, Placerville. So that was just on the West Coast. Then we had Port Royal, Lincoln, All-Stars, USAC. So I was kind of keeping an eye on everything. Just, I love to watch, you know, different track states, different competition. And like Bennett mentioned with Ocean, it took rubber, which was a complete 180 from the weekend before, where it was wide open and hooked up and rough. So the track conditions this weekend, I don't really know what to expect. I think this is something funny to bring up in the podcast, because I don't know if I talked about it in a video. I finally got some, so like our helmets, you know, you have the post, and mine just come with like stock post. You know, any helmet comes with stock post. And being from the Northwest, you know, we don't have a lot of hooked up racetracks. We don't put on a lot of tear-offs. So I just always had the plastic posts where you can maybe put on 15 or 20 tear-offs if you really, you know,
really
get them
stretch them on there. Yeah.
So a lot of the California guys, and I guess a lot of just sprint car guys, because you never know what you're going to get, they have like their gold or silver longer posts, so you can put on 50 or 60 tear-offs if you really needed it. Yeah. And so you can really tell that I'm a Northwest guy, because, heck, I never needed to put anything else on, because I was just used to, you know, only having to run 10 tear-offs a night.
I remember we had a screwdriver really stretching on the final ones.
Last
down at
Tulare.
Yeah, and I was like, goodness. And I think our buddies were like, what are you doing, man?
So we got some of those posts for this weekend just because we don't know what we're going to expect. That's talking about Ocean. Hanford, though, just recently, Peter Murphy. I know I saw a couple comments on the last video from Tulare. Peter Murphy, a guy that has really helped sprint car racing in California the last couple of years, taken over Hanford and made it as one of the premier joints along the West Coast. So it'll be awesome to make our first appearance down there. So 2 new racetracks and also getting back in the 410. You were there in Arizona, so you got to see the high horsepower and see how that went. So it'll be interesting for my 4th career 410 sprint car race.
At a brand new track as well.
Yeah, so we're going to make that happen. If you guys want to, you can watch live on Flow Racing. I'll put a link right at the top of the description. And if you're wanting to watch, that's definitely the place to do it for all the live action. Hopefully we can make a pretty good run down there. So now we're going to kind of wrap up this podcast episode. Bennett, do you want to hit us with a fan question?
Yeah, so Emily actually asks, and this is funny, do you drive your daily driven vehicle like on the road with 1 feet or 2 feet? And I'll let you start with this.
Okay, so I don't know what you guys are going to think here, but I actually drive my normal street vehicle. I got my license about a year ago, probably. I kind of waited a little bit, but that's maybe a story for another time. But once I started driving, I was super comfortable driving with 2 feet because I'm a racer. Yeah. I've never switched. So you guys can ridicule me in the comments. Maybe that's unsafe, but I would totally argue, because people always say your brake is not as fast as your gas foot, Yeah. But to me, I feel like as a racer, you have to have throttle control, but you also have to have brake control. So I would say that my left foot is just as fast as my right foot.
Yeah, I traveling long distances, I only drive with 1 foot. I actually keep one, like normal, I guess, if that's normal, 1 foot. Then I set her in cruise control. I just prop back in my chair and just go along for the ride all the way up to Oregon. But I just usually stick with 1 foot and one hand on my automatic car that I have to use shifting because it doesn't work like an automatic car.
It goes into limb mode.
Yeah.
So let us know in the comment section down below. Do you drive with 1 foot or do you drive with 2 feet? Or maybe, you're underage and you're young and you don't even drive at all. So trust me, it's one of those things. Like, I always kind of was set that I was going to just drive with 2 feet because that was more comfortable. I ended up doing that, and somehow I passed my driver's test because I just used 1 foot just that one time.
I think driving a street vehicle should be a personal preference. Like someone should tell you the laws of the road, but don't tell you how to drive. Because I always get told oh, you're a bad driver just because I don't necessarily use turn signals all the time. Okay, so that's why I think that's just my opinion on it.
Yeah, it is what it is. Everything's a recommendation, maybe. No.
Yeah.
But anyway, let us know in the comment section down below. Anyway, that is going to kind of wrap up this episode. It was fun to talk to JJ. We got a busy weekend ahead. Stay tuned for the drone shots, new racetracks, so many cool GoPro angles. I've got more cameras than I've ever had, and I got more cases to hopefully keep them safe. So I've been doing right rear cams, a front bumper cam. That was so cool. We also just did some of our normal spots and some cockpit shots. So we're gonna really bring some cool content from
now.
This weekend.
I got a drone and another GoPro, so our production is getting big.
Yeah. So stay tuned next Wednesday for another episode of Off the Track. But thank you guys for hanging out with us here today. You guys can listen on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or every single Wednesday at 3:30 for our video version right here on the Off the Track YouTube channel. We will see you guys all in the next one.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you are watching Off the Track, and it is time to drop the hammer.